People of Reddit, what was the kindest thing you've seen a gang do? Let's hop in. Story 1. I didn't see this personally, but about 20 years ago, my mother was a 5th grade teacher in Compton. For those of you who don't know, Compton is pretty notorious when it comes to its concentration of gangs and gang violence, especially in the immigrant district, which is where she lived and taught. It was a pretty average night if you heard between 1 to 10 gunshots. My mom, being the absolute boss she is, refused to leave the district or teach anywhere else. Anyways, her first year teaching there, she had a group of 5 boys, all of them living in destitute poverty. During break, they loved to draw pictures of cars like Lamborghinis and Porsches, all things that they could never afford. They all promised my mom that if they ever got a car, she would be the first person that they would take for a ride. Skipping ahead about 8 years later, my mom was leaving the school late one day after staying to grade some tests. As she's walking to her car, she sees a shady group of boys leaning up against a vehicle watching her. She began to walk fast, but the boys got up and started walking towards her. All of them were wearing the telltale blue bandanas, and my mom said that she could see one of them was packing a Saturday night special. Just as she gets to her car door, the group of boys reached her. One of them spoke in a deep, intimidating voice. "Miss, we're here to take you for a ride." My mom thought she was being kidnapped and reached for her pepper spray. Then another of the group members stepped forward and introduced themselves as the 5 boys she taught about 8 years ago. They squeezed my mom into the backseat of an old beat-up Cadillac between 2 of them, and they took her to a really fancy restaurant somewhere, paid for her meal in full. Later, they took her back to her car, dropped her off, and told her that if she ever needed anything at all, to call them. And then they drove off. Story 2. There's a group of big, scary bikers in my area. There's a solid chance that most of them are criminals of some description, just judging from some of the colors I've seen on the members. They also do a Big Brother program for kids that have been abused, and when the kid has to testify in court, 30 of these big scary bikers show up to the court in their leathers and colors so the kid knows for sure that they've got backup and they don't need to be scared of the abuser when they talk to the court. Story 3. I ran the after-school program at an elementary school in a rough part of town. Our playground was actually a city park, which meant we couldn't do the maintenance on broken equipment, and I couldn't kick people out to make it safer for the kids. I had problems with some teens and 20-somethings drinking and finagling their girlfriends while the kids were out playing. And god damn it, we didn't deserve to just stay inside because the cops didn't patrol. My kids deserved to play. It was frustrating. One day, a couple of gnarly 1%ers, outlaw bikers, approached me while we were outside and circled around me. Then they asked if I'd been having trouble with the neighbors coming around. I told them that, yeah, it had been pretty rough. One of them clapped a hand on my back and said, "Well, you ain't gonna have that no more, and you ain't gonna have no trouble from us." The next day, a biker was by the basketball court keeping watch while the kids played, and left when we were done. That continued every day for the rest of the school year. Also, the guys who stood watch never smoked or cussed while the kids were out there. I may not condone their career choice, but I sure appreciated their help. Story 4. At work in an auto shop, this woman runs in crying her eyes out because she locked her baby in her car and needed something to smash the window, but didn't have any money to buy anything. This man, completely decked out in dirty hell's leathers, a bandana, and a huge beard, walks over while we're rushing to find something to break the window that would cause the least amount of damage. And he just says, "Show us the car then." And he literally walks over to her brand new car, barehanded, runs his fingers along the door handle, smacks it on the side, and pulls the handle for the door to swing it open. Then he just strolls off while all of us are watching, absolutely stunned. He wouldn't even take any money or anything for it. He just told the woman to be more careful and went back to his leisurely browsing in the store. Story 5. I was 19 and stranded in North Miami. I had just locked my keys in my car in a rather unpopulated and shady area. I'm a blonde, blue-eyed, extremely white girl, and being as I had not intended to stop in North Miami to begin with, I was just wearing a bikini top and a miniskirt. There was a gang of Hispanic youth in the parking lot of an abandoned warehouse across the street from me, just watching me. This was long before cell phones and such, so I took a chance and just put on my most confident face and walked over to them to ask if anyone knew how to break into a car and if they could help me out. They all looked at each other for a second, and you could tell they were kind of thinking about what to do next. Then one of them shook his head and just walked over to my car, popped my lock with his pocket knife and a piece of wire he found on the ground, and they sent me on my way. Story 6. 2 good encounters with bikies. The father of a schoolmate was an angel. Despite being an enormous, scary, hairy bear of a man who constantly covered himself in leather and stunk of oil and beer, he was a great guy. He always looked after his kids and their friends. When one of my friends got lost on the local moorland, he got some mates on buggies to go find him. The second experience was more recently. I ride a crappy little 50cc scooter, and I was trying to change lanes to get off the major highway that I was on, but no one was letting me in. At some point, 2 bikers, I'm not sure which gang they were a part of because we have a ton locally, saw me struggling with some a-hole in a 4x4 not getting ahead or falling back so I could change lanes. These 2 bikies swung in front of him and forced an entire lane to slow down, then waved me in. I would have been stuck on that highway way past my exit if they hadn't come and helped me out. Story 7. I taught in the ghetto in 1992. My class was outside for gym class, and a caddy just kept driving by. One of my students in that class was affiliated with one of the local gangs, and he was watching the car too, so I asked him, "Hey, what's up with that caddy?" He just looked at me with a straight face and dead eyes and said, "Teach, I think it would be best for the class if we all went inside right now." So we did. I reported the caddy and its plates. Turns out, it was filled with 3 wanted felons and a swath of illegal guns. The gang member kid in our class probably prevented a play yard mass shooting. Story 8. Due to my father's affiliation with a 1% club that I'd rather not name, I was fortunate enough to grow up within the inner circles of these people. They babysat me, picked me up from school, attended my birthdays, and enriched my life greatly. The bad rap that shows like Gangland or documentaries on the History Channel portray are extremely one-sided and, frankly, completely unfair to most of these guys. What a lot of people don't understand is how connected they are to the community. I remember tons of charity runs, Toys for Tots drives, and fun barbecues. When my father passed away in 2005, they were right there, 2 bikes in front of the hearse and 2 behind, with a much larger group following the procession. To this day, my family has ties with the club, and I wouldn't want it any other way. Story 9. My sister and I traveling across Canada in a beat-up pickup. Little money, somehow getting by. I'm 18, she's 21. We run out of gas outside Thunder Bay. Biker shows up, once he sees what the problem is, takes off, and is back again in 15 minutes with a buddy in a truck and a bunch of gas. They invite us to a biker hog roast that's going on that night, and we go. Everyone's hard drinking, smoking, partying, great food, lots of beer. Older biker couple take us under their wing. We have a great time and stay the weekend. On Monday, they load up the truck with all the empty cans, and we return them and have enough money for gas to get to our friends in Quebec City. Good-hearted bunch of folks. Maybe they were engaged in illegalities. Actually, most definitely they were. But they helped us out in a time of need, and were very hospitable to us. Story 10. My grandparents kept a house in the country and a trailer in the city. Their neighbor was a hardcore alcoholic biker who loved cats, beer, and loud music. We would often see him passed out in his lawn in the mornings. Inexplicably, though, my parents loved him. And also, he was the nicest guy in the world. Just a real teddy bear. Trustworthy kind of guy. On one occasion, a false alarm, my mother thought that someone was trying to get into the trailer, and as my grandfather happened to arrive, he saw the biker en route to my grandma's with a sawed-off shotgun. On another occasion, they left for the weekend with their front door hanging open, and he camped out in his truck the first night and guarded the place, not wanting to intrude by going in or shutting the door, and not knowing what else to do. On the second day, he went in to make sure that no one was hurt and nothing was missing, and then shut the door. He camped out the following 2 nights, waiting in case a would-be burglar had opened the door and might return during the weekend. Actually, my family has always told me, if you're in trouble and you don't see a cop, look for a biker. I guess it's not so inexplicable that my parents liked this guy after all. Story 11. Our professor told us this story while we were on a field trip in Arkansas. He was giving a lesson in the Ozark Mountains at some outcrop on the side of the road when he heard a rumble coming from down the highway. Next thing he knew, there were about 100 rough-and-tumble Hell's Angels coming towards them. As they passed, he said the rumble was deafening. Finally, the whole crew passed them, but then the leader of the pack called for a U-turn. As they made the U-turn, they approached the class going on, and all the bikers brought their bikes to a stop. Not knowing what was going on, my professor asked if he could help them. The leader then proceeded to say that he saw something about geology on the History Channel, and was wondering if he could sit in on the lecture my professor was giving. With a laugh, my professor obliged, and looks back on it as one of the most rewarding lectures he's ever given. Story 12. When I was 15, someone slipped something into my soda at a bar. My stepdad played in a skeezy southern rock cover band, so I spent a lot of time in bars with my parents, helping my mom run the soundboard. I don't remember much about what happened that night, but at some point a group of ghost riders gathered around me as I was in the corner rocking back and forth, and they carried me out to a car and took me home. They made me tea and brought me crackers, and basically talked me through it until dawn. My parents stayed at the bar and worked, and they just let these bikers take me home and take care of me. 2 of them were convicted felons with violent offenses who had done many years in prison. Wow, those are some very trusting parents. But clearly things worked out, so... On that note, let's hop into the rapid fire segment for stories too short to make a full entry out of, but too good to be left out. Let's go. Buying an entire block food and presents every single year at Christmas, like 100 to 200,000 every single year. Not crappy canned food and dollar store toys either, like PlayStations, Xboxes, steaks, roasts, fruit. Things a lot of these people couldn't even hope to otherwise afford. Build Las Vegas. When the Crips and Bloods called a truce with each other in LA and both got together to protest police brutality. That was a big move towards a greater society. I saw a gang of elk protecting their young from a pack of wolves. Helped unload groceries for an old person. Sheepishly, wife and I went into a biker bar and got a beer and a bite to eat. A full bar bingo game broke out. Didn't see that coming. Honey, is that a biker gang? Yes, sweetie, but just be happy it isn't the Westboro Baptist Church. The Yakuza in Japan are known for helping with the reconstruction every time there's a tsunami. The Hells Angels participate in an annual toy drive around here, collecting toys for the poor or sick children. Every Friday the 13th, angels gather near a port where I live. I once saw a man's hot dog stand go up in flames, so an angel ran over and killed the fire with his leather jacket. Grandma would have died had a Hells Angel not transported blood for her in the middle of the night. Now don't forget to leave your story in the comments below if you have one, as well as to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. My name is ReddList, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time.
Untitled Chapter. Reload! Chase the thing away!